that we understand that this is an unprecedented event, and we are also working through a lot of changes and challenges with this. And so I appreciate just having the whole good sample of the team here. So Jen, next slide. So just a quick disclaimer. We've been on a lot of webinars. We've been listening to the newest information. We're going to be providing the most accurate, up-to-date information that we have today. But due to continuously changes that are going on with policies, new guidance coming out at the federal level, we ask that you just stay up to date with our webinar, our newsletter, and with the advisors. Things are constantly changing. We've found that on a day-to-day or if not hourly basis. So the best practice here is just to not just ask a question today, but to continue to ask us questions going forward. Next slide. So just a real quick synopsis on who we are. Santa Cruz Small Business Development Center has been here in Santa Cruz County serving this county for over 35 years. We have experts focused on Main Street, Tech Street, and ag. Anything from HR to obtaining capital, launching your business, succession planning, finance, marketing. Even we have our own IP attorney as well. So if you have a need regarding business, I'm sure we can either have that as expertise or could absolutely find that expertise. So the team that we have today, team of all-stars here, it's going to start in this order. First, actually with Danny on the lower middle, talking about funding. Then we're going to move over to Larry, lower left, talking about overall cash flow and resource management. Then the next presenter is going to be Joy, upper right, talking about HR and employer instructions with the EDD. Then Bryce Root, upper left, talking about communication and branding. And then we're going to end with Keith, upper middle, talking overall about business planning and pivoting. We're going to then end the whole presentation with a Q&A that's just open, and you can ask your questions along the way or just save them for the very end. We're going to try to keep a good chunk of time at the very end to be able to get to your questions. If we can't get to them, we're going to keep track of them. We'll make an FAQ and post it on our website tomorrow or the next day. Next slide. So with this, I want to hand it over to Danny Braga, talking about funding.
So most of the businesses that have been impacted are aware that there are some programs, but maybe they don't understand the difference between the ones that have been offered. The ones from the federal government are the top one. The first one says it's the EIDL loan, which is a direct loan. What that means is that when you're applying for an EIDL loan, you're requesting the funds directly from the SBA, the government. It's not going through a bank. The part of the EIDL loan also has a feature which they've added since they started that allows you to get a $10,000 advance, and that $10,000 is forgiven. So the most applicable or the best thing is if your need is only $10,000, you've got some free money. The application website or link is on the screen there. The most current application I went on today, and it is mostly just some yes/no questions and very few figures that are required. It's probably 10 minutes or less to complete. The second type of loan that has been floated, which is called SBA supported, meaning that SBA is providing 100% guarantee for banks. Banks that have SBA status can offer these loans. It's under the CARES program, CARES, as opposed to EIDL. Now, the subset of the CARES program is the PPP, which stands for Paycheck Protection Program. And those loans, you need to go on a website of your bank if they're offering them. Not all are offering them, and some are only offering to just their customers. So that's a bit of a disappointment for many potential lenders. The PPP loan has a formula in it, and it's really just designed to provide 10 weeks of relief. And so the calculation to get the loan amount is it's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. So what you do is you take your 940s or 941s from 2019, add the 4 quarters together, divide by 12 to get your average monthly payroll, times 2.5 is your loan amount. Now, the other interesting thing about this is that that money can be spent either on payroll or rent, insurance, or utilities. If 75% of it is spent on payroll versus those other 3 that I mentioned, your loan is forgiven. Now, the third loan is a California product. The governor issued a $50 million fund so that, under iBanks, that is, that allows banks that you may be a person who is not eligible for one of either the EIDL loan or the CARES Act loan. And so that loan can be up to $50,000, and it's guaranteed by the state of California. One of the other supporting pieces is that the California is allowing you to defer sales tax. In other words, you can collect it from a customer and then hold it in your working capital for, I believe, 12 months. And then lastly, this is a SBA loan that is capped at $25,000. It's been around for some time. It's a disaster loan. I have not heard of any banks that are holding their hand up and saying, yes, we're ready and willing to do these SBA bridge loans. In addition to those 4 sources of capital, if you currently have a SBA loan that you've got in the past for whether it's working capital or equipment or buy your building, you can get a 6-month deferment for 7A loans as well as 504 loans. Those are the 2 products in the SBA quiver. Next slide, please. So in the EIDL loan, so we're just talking about the EIDL loan here. How much do you apply for? They're saying it's working capital plus for 6 months. Well, one of the easy ways to calculate that is to take either your tax return from 2019 or your year-end P&L, take cost of goods sold, which is a very large part for retailers, and add your gross profit, if you like, or your operating expenses. Add those two things together, divide by 2, which is 6 months, and that's approximately what you're going to get for an EIDL loan. You can see the eligibility, business, and some ag co-ops, business, but you have to have less than 500 employees. Sole proprietors and independent contractors, they're coming online with, it's today's the 8th, so on the 10th. So they can apply on Friday for the, I'm a little, see, no, the EIDL loan, you can do it right now. The PPP, you can't do until Friday. I hope that's clear. And we haven't talked about the PPP yet. So, so assume you've applied for an EIDL loan. It'll take 2 to 3 weeks to get a 10,000 cash advance on the application. There's a box that says, would you like to have us send you 10,000 bucks? And basically that's all you have to do is check that box. The balance of your loan will come some 2 to 3 plus weeks later. Now, realize this, the amount of volume that the federal government is doing, SBA basically. I heard this morning that SBA is processing as many loans in one day as they normally do in a year. So the fact that these 2 to 3 weeks may not be exactly correct, and 25 to 35 days may not be reality either, but that's what we're telling people as far as we know. Next slide, please. Here's the PPP, part of the CARES Act. You can see the link there. You just go into to find a lender. So I mentioned, I recommend going to your local bank. If your local bank is not offering this program, you can go to that first link, the Paycheck Protection /find, and put in your zip code, and it'll give you a list of the participating banks. So if you are also like a Wells Fargo customer, and the Wells Fargo site, I think, shut down on Sunday, you can try one of these 3 options for lenders that we know are taking non-customers. And again, here's the formula, 2.5 times the monthly payroll costs. And payroll costs, you can see on that slide that it may include more than just normal salary. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the, so here's a nice a comparison between the 2 loans that the federal loans that we've talked about. On the left is the PPP, and on the right is the EIDL. You can see that the EIDL is limited to a $2 million total amount to lend. It's amortized over 30 years at 3.75%, which is pretty good rate. It says eligible for forgiveness. Well, we know that the $10,000 is forgivable, so you might make a mental note on that. The amount for the PPP is 10 million, 1% over 2 years. So the payments would probably be larger on the PPP if you don't qualify for forgiveness, or if the whole thing isn't forgiven. So I can't see the bottom. I don't remember what that one was, but we can go on and come back to it if need be. Okay, here's, I'm going to reiterate a couple of things here. California's assistance is via the $50 million fund. The loan total can be up to $50,000. Now here's what's confusing. The disaster state guarantee up to 1 million at a 5% exposure to whatever bank it is. So remember, this is the one I said, you go to the bank, you either don't qualify or don't want to use either PPP or the EIDL loan. And so you might get a state guarantee. It's a little confusing on the first and third bullet point because it is only a $50,000 maximum. The bottom one, where it says disaster state guarantee, is talking about the original state guarantee program that was in place way before COVID-19. So please don't get confused on that. And then again, here's the deferred payment of sales tax for up to 12 months and up to 50 grand. Next slide, please. Oh, here, this goes in. This is probably stepping on Larry's. Is this what you're going to talk about, Larry? Yeah. So I want, right now then, I thought I had 5 slides. I didn't count them, but I think that we'll just come back to any questions regarding those 4 or 5 slides. And now it's Larry's turn.
All right, thanks, Danny. Thanks, Brandon. Those of you that have worked with me in the past or currently work with me know the importance I put on managing your cash, being able to forecast your business out so you can recognize issues or problems before they happen and make adjustments and find other sources for money if you need to. So a lot of businesses do this, but some think it's too much work to do it. And if there's ever a time you need to manage your cash, is right now. Even if you think it's too much work. You cannot wait for something to happen. You have to be proactive. So what I wanted to do was just kind of give you the ins and outs of the spreadsheet. What I've decided to do is I'll put this together and I'll work with Brandon, and maybe there's a way he can distribute it to everybody, or I'll give you my email at the end if we can't do that to make sure you get this. But this is something that will help you look over. I put the next 12 weeks. We're looking at maybe at least 3 months where we'll be in the same situation we are now. And it's going to be critical that you really manage your cash and look at every area where you can save cash from spending it, both personally and professionally. This relates to your business, but also personally, there are other things you can do, like get a forbearance on your mortgage for 3 months to save that money right now, offset car payments. Credit card companies are helping people. So lots of ways to do it. But right now, you look at every single avenue you can to not spend cash and to keep it. And as Danny alluded to, the loans that they're looking to get, they initially were going to get that $10,000 in 3 days, and now it's going to be 3 weeks. So you can see that things are getting bogged down. And I watched the same webinar this morning Danny was, and I was just dumbfounded when they said that they're looking at as many loans in 1 day as they do the entire year. So you can understand how busy they are. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of give you an idea of how you can manage your cash and really look at what you have right now, what you anticipate going out, and what can be coming in, to really look and see if there are issues weeks 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, and handle them before they get here. So what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to make a spreadsheet, and I'm going to start with what your beginning cash is right now in your business. So you have a bank account, and you know what your cash is, or you have a bank reconciliation. And so what you're going to want to do is look at, are there any projected sales I could see over the next 3 months? Many of you have had to close your businesses, so there are no sales, but some of you, if you have restaurants, you have curbside service, you have online sales, you know, there are other ways that you can generate sales from your business other than having your store open. So you would look and try to anticipate what you would have. You have some sort of history the last 3 or 4 weeks. You project any more going out from there, and I'm sure Bryce will have some ideas on, if you're doing those, how you can market your business to hopefully continue to have those sales coming in. So you want to look at your beginning cash, you add in what your projected sales would be each week, any anticipated bank loans or grants. So if you have filed your idle loan, as Danny had said, within about 3 weeks, you're looking at hopefully getting $10,000. So you may put that out another week and put that in and see what that looks like. If you have the PPP loan, that may be another week or two, but we look at what you've what your loan amount is there that you're trying to get and put that in. And then you look, are there any personal funds you need to put in? So what this is going to tell you on a weekly basis is how much cash do I have available each week. And then you look at what your minimum expenses or payments going out. So you have your basic operating expenses. You may still be paying rent. Some of you may have an agreement with your landlord I've had accounts where they've actually forgiven rent for April. Some are putting it off, getting half. I know the county passed something that you don't have to pay rent till the 31st of or through the 31st of May, and then you work it out with the landlord. So there's all sorts of programs out there. But how does it affect you in particular? Are there credit card payments you have to make? Are you still paying your people? What cash you have going out every week? Do you have loan payments you have to pay? So when you subtract that, that gives you the amount of cash you have at the end of each week. So when you spread this out over a 12-week period with your anticipation, you can look at every single week and see where you're going to be cash-wise. And understand it's a projection. And so what you do is the end of a particular week, you put the actual numbers in and it'll reforecast everything for you. So if you had a better week than you thought, you'll have more money. If you didn't do as well, it'll be less, but it'll show you exactly where you are from one week to the next. And it'll help you manage your cash and identify a problem you may have ahead of time. So if you see a problem 6 weeks out, you don't have to wait to get to that 6th week to find a solution. You need to do it now. Is that going to be personal funds? Do I need to borrow money from a friend? Is my bank loan going to come in? These are the types of things. So this is a moving target. This is not anywhere. It's not a science. It's kind of an art of putting it together. I'm happy to put it together for you. So I have to do is enter the numbers in and they'll calculate for you. But if you've never done it before, you have got to do it. You have got to do it. This is not an option. This is something you have to do. It's mandatory. If you don't do this, you'll find yourself in trouble. And so I'm just trying to lay something out here that'll provide you a 3-month window that you'll be able to look and see if your business is going to need cash, where it's going to come from, and avoid any issue before it happens. So Brandon, we could maybe talk afterwards. I'll set it up and you let me know how we want to get it to people.
Great.
And for those of you that know me, know that I look at a business's numbers. Bryce gets clients for you, and Keith puts a great plan together, and Joy gets your employees all set up, and we have married social media. For me, it's all numbers. All those things convert into numbers. And so when you look at a financial statement or you look at a forecast, it's all numbers. So that's what this is. So I encourage you to use this and to really plan your business over the next 12 weeks so you know exactly what you're going to need and where it's going to come from.
Great, thanks, Larry. Now Joy's gonna talk about HR and just an employee.
Yeah, this is you're hearing the numbers from our loan brains here about how bad the systems are plugged. That's true for the HR systems as well. And so I know you've had to struggle with a lot of decisions and that to be made. If one of the decisions are whether you have work for your employees or you don't, and you're going to have to send them, close the business or close your doors or send them home, one of the things we've not had in place in most businesses is a telecommuting policy. And this is where your expectations need to be really clear with those employees you've got that are working at home. Because if it's not, then there's going to be it's going to cause you some hardships and some problems. So you need to you need to create a telecommuting policy, and don't worry about it being fancy right now. Just capture some of the information. You can see some of the things on the screen. Some law firms are even recommending that you have a telecommuting agreement that you get signed by your employees. Not a bad idea. You have time for it right now? It's going to be your decision again on that one. There's for most people, most companies are not set up to have their people work at home. And so all these new things like Zoom and some of the other software packages that are out there, you may have to think about that as to what kind of resources you need to give your employees in order for them to work at home. And then remember that you may be operating in Santa Cruz or you may be operating in Watsonville, but if your employee is working in Salinas or working in another jurisdiction, there may be local ordinances that require what you pay and what you don't pay in those local ordinances. So you got to not only look where your business is right now, but look at where the employees might be working from. So next slide. Okay, so if you're working from home, it's really, really, really important you find a way to track the hours. If they are non-exempt, meaning or hourly, if that's your term, they need to be paid for all the time they're working, and there needs to be a way for them to capture it. If they're exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act, meaning they're paid by the job, not by the hour, you need to think about what job they're doing at home, and is it the same job they were doing at work, and does it qualify now for them to be classified as exempt? If so, you have to pay them for any work that they do during that week. And so you need to be real clear on what you're going to be willing to pay for and not pay for. Some clients that I've talked to have already sent out a letter with the job duties for at home and are reclassifying them to hourly for right now, because the job doesn't qualify under the Fair Labor Standards. And where you get that information is in your Industrial Welfare Commission order for your particular business, which I can help you find if you want to give me a call. It's going to be important for another reason to have real clear job descriptions for that duty at work, because if for some reason that person gets hurt while they're working at home, you're going to have to be real clear whether it qualifies as for workers' compensation or not. All these crazy things we have to really think about now. And then you need to look at your existing policies, your California paid sick leave policies, your handbook. And if anything you're doing now is different, you may need to temporarily modify those and get that information in the hands of your employees, or your current policies that they have a copy of, maybe the governing body, and you may not want that. This is also a time to really, and I can't emphasize enough what Larry said now. Now is really the time to be thinking outside the box. And by that I mean, what about all those projects you wanted your staff to get done and they didn't get done? Because time issue. Think about those right now. This is an opportunity for you to get ready for when those doors open, for your business to be able to fly with the eagles and not be struggling with some of the policies you've got. For example, employers of 5 or more are required to have sexual harassment training by the end of the year. Do it now. Pay them that hour for doing it at home and record that time. What about training like HIPAA if you're in the medical areas, or food handlers cards if they need to be updated? This is a great time to do it. And if you've applied for a loan, and I can write your payroll off on that, you're getting double dipped. You're going to be able to get those things straightened out, and at the same time have your employees at home and being paid. Okay, next slide. If you've already terminated or laid off employees, it has to be in writing to them. Verbal things are not going to work right now. So you need to be sure that if you've laid somebody off or furloughed them, which is by far the safest word right now. Furloughing in the past meant that they were temporarily out and you didn't need to pay them their final wages before you let them go. Layoff, you would have had to be sure you paid all their vacation, their PTO, whatever that before they went. So if you get it in writing to them, then you need to put this statement in there. And I would be sure that there's information there about who to get a hold of, what sites closed if you have multiple sites. A lot more information I can provide you on that. My biggest concern not only is right now, but the transition back. As hard as it is for your employees to have gone home and tried to work from home, coming back is going to be as equally a difficult transition for people, with the businesses having changed in a lot of ways. So be thinking now about that transition plan and start, doing that in your weekly staff meetings on Zoom or whatever. So communicate. Document. The HR's theme song forever, but it couldn't be more important than it is right now. Next slide. So I've kind of covered those kinds of things, but you've got to find ways to let your employees know whether they're working from home or whether they don't know when this is going to be over. Find ways to communicate with them. Have a monthly staff or weekly staff meeting to just find out what they've learned and what questions they might have that you might be able to get the answers for them. Reaching out to them, reaching out to your customers, reaching out to your vendors to just stay in touch is going to be a full-time job, but it's going to pay off when those doors open up again. Okay? Now, document. Can't say it enough. You're going to not get answers to some of the questions. None of us are going to be able to answer all the questions, like on unemployment. Sick leave is still some unknown areas. I'd be happy to try to get the answers for you, but document your decisions. I'd get you a little journal book and start recording. This is what the situation is. This is the decision I made. I made the decision based on this because I couldn't get any answers. But just something, because 3 months from now, 6 from now, you're not going to remember why you made that decision. And this is going to be your gospel to go back to be able to refresh your memory on why you made some decisions that affect the labor codes and affect your staff. Okay, Bryce.
Okay, is that better? Okay, so when it comes to marketing, it's something that you have to be very sensitive to, given the climate. But much like everyone that you've heard before me, especially Larry, he and I work a lot together with different clients. You really need to be planning right now for the current state of things for survival. But even more important is planning for afterwards, when this is over, because many things are changing. And so what this means is having a business plan, working on projections, and then developing a marketing plan that actually helps to achieve those business plan goals that you've set. So that's really what the first bullet here is all about. The second one is really that this is so true, and you're all seeing it happen like daily. Consumers' habits, and I'm sure many of your customers' habits, shopping habits, and just overall internalization of information is changing by the day. For those of you that are in the fitness industry, literally you had to pivot within probably 24 or 48 hours. So being able to kind of figure out what that plan is and figure out and monitor what your customers are doing and what they're expecting. Like all this, like curbside pickup, same day delivery, all these different things that you're seeing happen, they're getting used to that. And who knows, maybe there's 2-3 months more of that, and it's just going to be embedded in what they expect. So what can you guys do to adapt your business? And who knows, there might be a whole nother kind of income stream or product or service that you could tap into that you may not offered before. So bullet 2 is all about that. And the third one is it's not that often that the world, much like Joy was just saying, it's not too often that the world kind of takes a pause, like life is on pause. And for many of you, you might have a little bit extra time. I know with family, kids at home and all that, you may or may not have that. But this really is the chance, the opportunity to work on your business. Many of you are just, you wear so many hats that it's really hard to work on your business. You're always in your business. But this is the time to learn a new skill, shoot your first video, start to kind of audit your online presence, get your Google business listing up and running. It's really taking the time to audit and really look at what's been on your wish list. Maybe there's a certain aspect of your business that it's a really creative idea that you've been wanting to launch for some time. Now's the time. Maybe you go to bed an hour or two later and you brainstorm, you think about the logistics, you pencil it out, you do the projections. Like right now really is the time. You're not given this kind of pause button to life. This is a chance for you to really work on your business. So when it comes to marketing, it's something that some people are kind of scared of certain things like doing video and stuff like that. This is your time to practice that. Facebook, Instagram Live, all that. Go take the leap, try it out, go on camera, whatever it might be. This is really your chance to kind of grow your business, enhance it, try something new, experiment, learn a new skill, whatever it might be. So I'm going to keep the marketing section short, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A after this. And you can see on my slide that there's actually some photos. Those are thumbnails from some of the videos that we've been putting out in collaboration with the SBDC. And we've tackled all sorts of topics, ranging from, I talked to Joy the other day about HR. I talked to Tom Bruce all about the food business and what you need to be doing. And of course, Larry, talked to him a couple times already. And so we have some more videos queued up for this next week or two. So stay tuned. Lots of topics are going to be covered, and feel free to put in your questions. I'm looking forward to answering some of them a little bit later. Okay, thanks guys.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. My feeling is at this point, after talking to a lot of my long-term clients, and reading and staying abreast of the news on a national level and a worldwide level, I think it's really important to plan not just for the short term, which hopefully will get us through the summer, but what happens when the fall hits again, and if there's no real cure or no real treatment for this virus, are we going to be going through another winter? How do you plan moving forward? And my feeling is you plan through this summer and get ready to plan through parts of next winter as well. So looking at about a 12-month plan. If you need to pivot your business model, as people have spoken before about curbside pickup for restaurants or videos for yoga studios, health clubs, those kinds of things, I think they're doing those for a couple of reasons. One, they actually are getting some people continuing to pay for those videos. But secondly, they're keeping themselves in front of their client base, which I think is really, really key. So whatever you can do to stay in front of your customers, I think it's going to be very valuable. If you need to pivot your business model, I use a business planning tool called the Lean Planning Canvas, which is actually up on our website. And I teach it actually as a tool for helping people gather their thoughts and do some projections when it comes to, when I talk about a business model, is this business going to make money? And this planning canvas tool is really effective to not only plan a new business, but also pivot for an existing business going into new areas. So it is on our website. It's called the Lean Planning Canvas. There's a tutorial right next to it that you can click on. And you can also get in touch with me directly through the SBDC Center. I can help you through that. And I think that last but not least, the question that's really most important, and if you want to click on that slide, Jen, is kind of a summation of what everybody else has been talking about. And how prepared will you be for moving forward in this new economy? And I think it will be a new economy. What's your inventory of what you have and what you will need in order to move forward? And the beauty of the SBDC is most of those needs can be helped and satisfied by using the SBDC Center itself and the advisors that participate in it. But that's going to be really key about moving forward and identifying the tools that you don't have. I think I've preached in my workshops about the absolute necessity to keeping good financial records, not only so you can make better decisions, but also it adds to the value of your business. Didn't talk a lot about how valuable it will be if we end up with the type of economy that we're going into now and having those financials not only in place, but aren't commingled, that are straight up, that are accurate for the business and not just for your personal purposes. So keeping those financials, as Danny and Larry have talked about, is vital for this at this point in time. But I would highly recommend for those folks who are trying to change their business model to go onto our website or contact me and get access to that lean planning canvas and just walk your way through it. It doesn't take very long, and it's a beautiful tool to use because it's easy to use. Okay.
Great. So thank you, everyone. At this point, I'm just going to go down the questions that have been posed in our Q&A. And if you do have a question and you put it in the chat, I just ask you just copy and paste it back into the Q&A so we can make sure we get to it. One of the questions here is for officers in an S Corp, do shareholders' distributions also get factored into the calculation for payroll? Or is it just salary that gets calculated to determine the payroll amount for the PPP application?
It's just the payroll.
Just the payroll.
Yeah, it's the same thing as dividends to stockholders in a C Corp. Those are not covered by any of the loan project or products.
Second question, I've applied for both SBA loan and PPP loan. Is that okay?
It is fine, but let me give you a caveat that you should not spend the funds. Let's assume you get both of those loans. The PPP use is only for those 4 items that I had mentioned: payroll, rent, or mortgage interest if you're buying your property, utilities, insurance. If you use the idle money to pay those, then you can't spend the money. You should not be able to spend the money, or at least you won't get the money forgiven if you try to spend the PPP money. So my recommendation is, if you're going to have both products and you're successful in obtaining both loans, open up a separate account for your PPP expenses. That way you can track them much easier. Your idle money can go for purchasing inventory, advertising, whatever other operating expenses you have that don't fall into the category of 4.
I'd like to second that. Danny's absolutely right. They have really emphasized to keep that money in a different account. So if you get audited on it, they can say exactly where it is and not to commingle it. So he's exactly right. And you want to make sure you do that.
It's really the difference between free money and not free money. If you don't do it, you're not going to get it forgiven.
Great. If I've applied for an SBA loan and a PPP loan, should I apply for a California iBank loan?
Well, your PPP loan had to go through a bank. And so the iBank loan you could apply for. I don't know what your, it would depend on your financial status as to the likelihood of getting approved there.
Can we use the loan money to pay estimated quarterly federal tax payments? Or is
I
there
don't believe
forbearance offered on those payments?
I don't believe so.
Do you have to apply for the deferred payment for sales tax?
That's a good question. We could, we'll have to get that answer and put it on our website.
How will the loan amount for the PPP be calculated for independent contractors? If there is no payroll, what will they qualify for?
I'm thinking it's going to be your 1099 because that is not available until Friday. Many of the details about calculations don't exist or not at least distributed.
Brandon?
Yep.
In connection with that one, the advice from SBDC is for the sole proprietors, if they file for unemployment, they should put their own name down as the last employer.
For a PPP loan, does forgiveness depend on retaining full-time employees? What about part-time employee layoffs?
I believe those are also calculated into the, I think it's like full-time equivalents. So I believe the part-times are also included. I believe. And that falls under that disclaimer that we had at the beginning of the session.
On the same page, is forgiveness based on the number of employees retained or the total payroll costs?
Same category. We're going to have to find that out.
Using, Brandon, use the number 75%, but they haven't clarified is 74% of what you get from the PPP should go to employees, as Danny had mentioned, that in order for it to be forgiven. So, but they haven't said if it's, I'm assuming it's the total amount that they're given, but they haven't really clarified that totally. If it's all.
That's correct. Yeah, that part is out. That 75% if the dollar amount is spent, 75% is spent on employees. Didn't say whether it's full or part-time.
Right.
That would qualify for forgiveness.
Has the annual California corporate tax deadline been extended, or is it still due by April 15th?
Can't answer that.
The California?
Yeah.
I think Newsom extended that to June or July 15th, but we'll have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure they extended it.
I think it's June 15th and the Fed's is July 15th.
July 15th, yeah.
If you're not the owner, sole proprietor, can the COO apply instead? Can apply for the PPP or the ILO? What are they talking about? Yeah, either or. Well, they're telling everybody to apply, and they'll figure it out. I mean, if you're a sole proprietor, if you're a corporation or a single LLC or something, they're just telling everybody to apply for it to get in the queue.
For idle loans, it's it follows the basic rules of SBA lending, and that is any owner 20% or more is one of the applicants. The COO, if that person is not an owner of 20% or more, then I believe they could certainly fill it out, but they can't sign it.
What is loan forgiveness? How does it work? Will this be taxed at some point?
I'll answer the last question first. It will not be taxed. So whether you got the 10,000 out of the idle loan or you get a PPP and the whole thing is forgiven, none of that is going to be taxed. is what we're being told. What was the other part, Brandon, of that?
How will the forgiveness work?
Well, if you, I don't know specifically what they're talking about. When you apply for an EIDL loan on the online application, there's a little box that said, are you interested in having a $10,000 advance? If you check that, that's how that works. PPP, well, the forgiveness is dictated by your spending of those proceeds. If you comply to the regulations, you'll be able to, the whole thing will be forgiven. If you do not comply, in other words, you spend 60% on insurance and rent and 40% on payroll, it doesn't qualify for forgiveness, for 100% forgiveness. I think you do get a partial forgiveness, and the rest would be expected to be paid back at 1% interest over a 2-year period.
As a self-employed person without employees, how is payroll calculated for the EIDL or PPP? Gross sales after business expenses on the P&L question?
That's our speculation, but until those regs come out on Friday, we can't answer that 100%.
Which funds should come through first, the PPP, EIDL, or something else?
We think the PPP would come through first, simply because SBA has created that with the banks. So now you've got 1,000, 2,000 banks that do SBA loans that are doing the distributing and the underwriting, et cetera, that SBA is doing on all the EIDL loans. So one would think that your local bank would be able to do it faster.
Can the EIDL program be used for other governmental agencies or nonprofits?
The answer is it can be used for nonprofit, but not all nonprofits. I believe this is a question that, what are they called? 501(c)(6)s, which cover chambers of commerce, are not eligible.
Do payments to payroll service companies like ADP qualify for forgiveness? What about payroll taxes?
No, ADP fees would not be included as part of the payroll. Payroll taxes, I think the employee piece, I think I just read that the employer portion of like FICA is not included. The employee piece is.
In regards to the PPP loan, what if all your employees don't come back? Will it be prorated?
Don't know.
That might be that 75% rule too. They're looking at dollars more than maybe bodies.
Oh, true. Right. Right. Good point, Larry.
Also, if the shelter in place is still in effect when you're approved for the PPP loan and the 8 to 10 week time frame starts when you are approved, how can you pay your employees when they're supposed to be at home?
Here, that was discussst today. There wasn't an answer to it. When I say discussed, it was discussed with our Northern California brethren, these Northern California SPDC. And there's a question whether or not the clock starts when you are approved or when you actually take the money. So you could be approved and the bank puts the money, we're talking about PPP?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bank would put the money in your account or at least say the money is available. If you don't draw that, I'm thinking it's maybe when you do a withdrawal. So you could be approved and have the money sitting there, and the bank may have a policy as to how long you can do that, but you don't have to take it day one. I don't think it's the date of approval.
Yeah,
I know on the idle loan, you could let it sit. In fact, you could refuse it.
Well, and here's where they need to be, you need to all be thinking outside the boxes, because if you come up with things, even if your employees, as I understand it, even if your employees you have furloughed them and they are drawing unemployment, if you can find things for them to do at home or these classes or whatever, they can drop off of unemployment and be on your payroll where they're getting paid and then go back on unemployment if you don't have anything for them to do past the couple of projects.
I think here's a kind of a question along those lines, Joy, is what if they're be making potentially more money on unemployment insurance than if they're working in the business?
That's the question that comes up because of this $600 additional amount that's being added to the unemployment benefits. And there's no answer yet as to whether that's a flat 600, in which case it's going to be hard to get your employees back, except that's going to run out. So we don't know yet whether that's a proportion in relation to what they qualify for unemployment, or whether it's a flat amount of money, because the examples are using the maximum they could draw under unemployment plus the 600. So don't know yet.
What are the conditions required for 100% forgiveness with the idle loan?
The idle loan, it's only the $10,000 advance is eligible to be forgiven. The balance of the loan is under the 3.75% over a 30-year term. So that is an actual loan that has to be paid back.
If I laid off a worker on the 16th, should I bring that employee back on payroll or let them collect unemployment? I'd like that employee to stay on our healthcare, but since healthcare is tied to employment, and didn't finish the question.
Yeah, the recommendation I've seen from a couple of law firms right now is that you should think about bringing them back because of that whole benefit area, is to bring, as long as you've been approved, you've been approved for the reimbursement under the PPP, then, and you've got, bring them back, and then you can cover them for their health benefits and whatever else is covered under the PPP.
Brandon, I think the government kind of put themselves in a corner in the sense that my understanding of the PPP loan is to make sure that your employees stay whole. And even if they're not working, that they have money that they can put into the economy, and they're not going on unemployment. But now when they've had a $600 a week addition to the unemployment, some will be making more money on unemployment than if they went back to work. So this is kind of conundrum that they got back and forth with. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out if they come out with a policy on that.
Well, and the unemployment office right now doesn't even know how to process the $600, and they don't know how to process some of the new conditions. So they're grounding just like the banks and everybody else is about the loans. They don't know how to do it, but they're being told to do it.
Larry, didn't we talk about a strategy about if somebody applied and received a PPP loan as well as an idle loan, and their employees were on unemployment, if the employees could get by on that unemployment, they would do that until they can see the point where the business is going to be reopening in a short term.
Yeah, that was brought up by someone in the bank. They said that that's what some people are doing, that they said that they would approve the loan, and once the loan is approved, whoever that business is, is allocated those funds, but they don't have to take them right away, is what I understood. That they could offset them by 30 or 60 days when a business is opening up, let the people see unemployment, and then the clock starts ticking when they open up, and then use that to pay their employees. So you're right, Danny. That's what someone brought up when we had that webinar.
Right, and then after you're ready to open, then you go into your PPP funds to fund your first 10 weeks.
Correct.
And after that, you start using your idle funds for, you've already qualified for spending the payroll portion on during PPP period.
Right.
And then you use your idle fund as the last financing piece of your puzzle.
Right.
The downside of that is the health insurance benefits.
True.
Right.
As a CEO of a S Corp, if you continue to work to bring money into the business but do not draw a salary, are you eligible for California unemployment?
Say that again?
As a CEO of an S Corp, if you continue to work to bring money into the business but do not draw a salary, are you eligible for California unemployment?
I don't know the answer exactly, but it's almost like what the loan guys are saying. I would file. All they can do is say no.
Are the terms and conditions of each loan set right now, or can they add on more terms and conditions later that are not non-negotiable?
All the parameters are set for the loans. I don't know exactly what that question is referring to, but once there are going to be loan documents that are going to get signed, which will,
Yeah.
explain the details, but essentially the general conditions of those loans, that is what we're presenting today.
The only thing I have seen them change is, once the paper's going, the only thing that changes the, what the PPP loan, or something that wasn't forgiven initially was a 10-year loan at 4%. Now it's a 2-year loan at 1%. So they're making slight changes. I think Danny's right. Once you sign the papers, it's over. I don't think they're going to make major changes to it. They're kind of going through the details now before anybody really gets funded.
And as a better or a continuing example of that, Larry, remember it was 4%, 10-year. Then they went to 0.5%.
Right.
And then now they're at 1%.
I changed my pitch 3 times to people.
They shook them off.
Yeah, I said, hey, it's 4, it's 10, it's 1, it's here you go. Yeah. But now it's 1%, 2 years. That was not forgiven.
And no prepayment penalty.
No.
No PPP on prepayment penalty is different than the PPP loan. Yeah, no prepayment penalty on any of the products.
Do you have to apply for more than 10K to receive the EIDL loan? If so, what's the minimum amount?
No, you don't have to apply. You don't have to apply for 10,000. You could apply for 8,000, and that would probably fall under the $10,000 whatever you want to call it, feature.
My business is closed. I have put my employees on furlough, but it looks like I will need to do a layoff as I cannot afford the medical premiums. If I pay the medical premiums with the PPP loan funds, if approved, and the employee doesn't come back when we open, I would be out of the medical premium layout. Do you agree I should do a layoff as to prevent paying out the medical premiums and reducing my risk?
I guess for me, looking from a cash perspective, if that's something that's going to drain your bank account and you can't afford to pay it, then it's just a reality of the situation from the cash perspective. Yeah.
Remember, if you're currently offering medical plan coverage, you may have to be notifying them of their COBRA rights.
Right. And this is the kind of thing I was referring to earlier, that you really need to look at your plan going through the next 12 weeks And there'll be things you may not be able to afford, as hard as it is to cut it back. You have to do it legally within with the policy to set up. But if you cannot afford to pay something, you can't just have your bank account drained because you want to be a nice person. You just can't do it. Or you won't be open when you get back. Now, if you get the loans, then you have something to work with. But this is exactly what we're talking about. When you start forecasting, being able to look at out week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, exactly where am I going to be, and make a decision now. If it looks like a month from now, you're going to be in trouble, and start setting that in motion.
That's why communications with your employees to let them know what's going on all the time as it changes is so critical, because if they're sitting home thinking you don't care, guess where they're going when the market opens up.
Right.
Do they extend the PPP figures from 8 weeks to 10 weeks? I was under the impression from the Treasury website that payroll had to be paid out within 8 weeks.
I just said 10 weeks because it's a 2.5 times your monthly payroll, which would equal 10 weeks. That's for calculation of the loan amount. If it has to be paid out during 8 weeks, and that's probably correct.
Can they add riders to the loans?
If I applied for 25,000 and I need more, can I request an additional 10,000 or 15,000? The answer is yes.
If I'm self-employed and have an individual health insurance policy, may I use the loan money to pay that?
Yes.
I haven't taken my employee off the health plan, but I did furlough them with the idea that I would bring them back once I got funded. Sounds like I'm doing wrong, but it feels right. Am I supposed to take them off the health plan until I can get funding and go through the whole off/onboarding to the healthcare plan?
Well, again, that kind of depends, like Larry was saying, what can you financially afford to do? If you can financially afford to keep them whole until you get your loan, then by all means, that's going to create the culture and the climate you want to get them back. But if you can't afford it and you have coverage right now, then you should be following your policies, your carrier's policy about giving them COBRA notifications.
My understanding is that the SBA has changed their policy and now are only advancing $1,000 per employee up to 10 employees. Can you confirm whether that is true or not?
I
haven't heard that.
I haven't heard anything like that.
No.
And we were on a webinar this morning. That would have been something that was discussed.
Has California decided if unemployment benefits paid for reasons related to COVID-19 will not be charged to an employer's experience rating, such as their unemployment insurance contribution / payroll rate should not increase?
I would guess that would be true, because this is federal money coming in there to make these promises complete, but that's not a question they even know the answer to yet.
Okay. Well, that's the last question we have here. So do the advisors, do you guys want to say any closing remarks? If so, feel free.
Well, I would just say that this is quite a group of people we have, and we're all really dedicated to Santa Cruz and the businesses out there. We're doing the best we can to provide the information, but to have them understand that things are literally changing daily, and things that maybe were happening last week have changed this week. And they said, I think someone mentioned earlier, they're building the plane as they fly it. And, another quote was, we'll get the money out and we'll figure out the details later. So we're just trying to provide as much information as we can that we know right up to the moment. Like Danny said, we were on a webinar this morning with this, and there were some things that were different than they were last week. So, we're just here to help as many people as we can and provide the information.
Brandon, thank you very much for providing the business community this resource. It's, I think, invaluable to our neighbors that provide services and items for us. And I hope they take advantage of our services from the SBDC.
And Brandon, I was just wanted to, if anybody's interested in me putting together a template for them, I'm going to do it. If they can maybe just contact the office somehow, give me contact information, and we can get together with their email addresses and I'll send it to them.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate that I'm more than happy to work with people on helping them put the plan together to help pivot their business if necessary. And obviously the people you see on the screen will be a vital part in making that plan work.
Yeah, and same for me. If I can help you think through or talk through some of your HR questions, even if I don't have the answer, I will at least have your contact information, and I'll trying to keep a list of people who are asking particular questions so that with these 4,000 webinars we're all listening to, when the answers become available, we'll know how to get it back to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all your time. I do want to say we do have an incredible team here that are just going the extra mile to helping the businesses out. I even highlight Danny, who's come out of double retirement to be back on the team. And so we have a phenomenal team. It is a free service to the business community here in Santa Cruz County. We do work with business owners that are serious and take our time seriously. But at the same time, we're very generous with welcoming you in. If you're all interested in talking to an advisor, I encourage you to first visit our website, santacruzsbdc.org. You can just click on a link that says enroll today or join now. It takes about 1 minute, and it allows us to then route you to the appropriate advisor to contact you within a day or two. That is, again, a free service and something that I hope you do not pass on. The other thing is on that website landing page, we are listening to, half a dozen to a dozen webinars every week. We're trying to create the signal and all the noise that's going on and putting the latest information that we think is the most relevant to you and your business. We have a newsletter you can sign up for. We're trying to send that out practically weekly now with webinars we think that are worth your time, other resources, if there's any additional funding opportunities, everything that we think is taking 15 hours of our time and putting into 15 minutes of your time to read through it. So I encourage you again to subscribe to our newsletter, subscribe to our advising. You can also email us at sbdc@cabrillo.edu, and we'll quickly reply as well. If you have any additional questions, including if you're interested in Larry's cash flow analysis, happy to send that over to you. So again, thank you so much for your time, and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.